Welcome back. Today, we're tackling a topic that really defines our modern era, but we're going to do it with a bit of a twist. We're moving past the whole environmental doom and gloom thing, and instead, we're focusing on strategic, net positive action. Today's explainer is all about the undeniable reality of resource scarcity, and more importantly, how we can actually do more with less in our own projects and organizations. We're going to break this down so you have the tools to not just survive a resource-constrained future, but to absolutely lead in it.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the global resource crunch and forecasting future demand. Then we'll move down to the ground-level project risks and impacts. After that, we'll pivot to the circular economy solution, and finally, wrap up with delivering net positive value. Let's just dive right in.
To start, let's establish the sheer scale of the challenge we're facing. Right now, today, 2.2 billion people lack safely managed drinking water. Think about that. That isn't some far-off future projection. That is a present-day reality for our absolute most fundamental resource.
And, the pressure is just compounding from there. By 2050, we're going to need 25% more food just to meet baseline global demand. And when you consider that our arable land and soil are rapidly degrading, clearing that 25% hurdle, well, that becomes a seriously steep climb.
But here is the crazy part. Think about the sheer irony of our technological progress. The global clean energy transition, the exact thing we're doing to save our planet, is going to require a 3 times increase in critical mineral demand by 2040. Whether we're talking about lithium, cobalt, or copper, the technologies that will power our future demand an unprecedented extraction of finite earthly materials.
So what does this all mean? Well, it brings us to this incredibly useful synthesis by Dr. Rachid Ouache, the Net Positive Project Management Framework. What this framework hits on so perfectly is that resource scarcity isn't just this abstract ecological problem for scientists to figure out. No, it directly threatens environmental health and the day-to-day success of our actual projects. Organizations just can't operate on a model of infinite consumption on a planet that has strictly finite limits.
Okay, moving to part 1, the global resource crunch.
So, what's actually driving this scarcity? It's kind of like a giant pressure cooker. We have a massive convergence of forces going on here. You've got rapid population growth meeting expanding urbanization, which means more and more people are moving into highly concentrated, highly resource-intensive cities. Then, you've got rising consumption constantly clashing with our deeply ingrained take-make-dispose economy. Throw in climate change, which degrades the environment, and geopolitical tensions, where countries tightly hoard the critical materials they control, and you have exponential volatility.
Which brings us to part 2, forecasting future demand.
When we look ahead to 2050, the projections are wild. We're looking at a 55% increase in water demand and a 50% increase in energy. But honestly, look at that final number. A staggering 200% jump projected from metals and minerals. The materials essential for our infrastructure, our technology, and our clean energy, they're going to be under absolutely unimaginable demand pressure.
So, the bottom line? We are currently living way beyond the planet's means. The math simply does not work long term. And the fundamental takeaway here is that the sooner we can decouple our economic and project growth from physical resource consumption, the better our chances are for a prosperous, stable future. We have to figure out how to grow in value without correspondingly growing in physical resource extraction.
All right, part 3, project risks and impacts. Let's shift from the macro environment down to your ground-level business realities, because this is urgently relevant to your daily operations. Let me ask you directly, have your projects ever faced a sudden supply chain delay? Have you ever dealt with unexpected price volatility for raw materials? If so, guess what? You are already experiencing resource scarcity in action. This isn't just theoretical economics. Increased competition for scarce resources leads directly to supply chain disruptions, which cause project delays, which lead to massive cost overruns. Plus, as resources get scarcer, governments naturally step in, leading to really tough regulatory and compliance challenges. And we can't forget the severe risk of stranded assets. Those are investments that lose their value prematurely just because the resources needed to operate them become way too expensive or even legally restricted.
So, how do we fix this? Part 4. The circular economy solution.
We've agitated the problem, so let's talk about doing more with less. Notice the stark contrast here. For generations, we've basically run on a linear economy. We take, we make, we dispose. The fix for this is the circular economy. This means designing from day one for durability, reuse, and recyclability. The goal is to keep materials in the loop for as long as humanly possible, maximizing their value while completely minimizing our consumption of brand new, virgin resources.
But get this, here's the surprising reality check. Right now, less than 9% of the global economy is circular. Actually, scratch that. Recent data suggests it's more like 8.6% to be exact. Now, while that number might sound small, what it actually proves is that there is a massive, incredibly lucrative landscape of untapped opportunity out there for us. The organizations that figure this out first, they are going to have a monumental competitive advantage.
To see this kind of innovation in action, just look at Singapore's NEWater program. They recycle used water into extremely high-quality drinking water. It's so effective that it meets up to 40% of the entire nation's water demand. That is a real game changer. It's the circular economy at its absolute best, and it just goes to show how focused innovation, strategic investment, and cross-sector collaboration can completely transform scarcity into total resilience and opportunity.
Finally, let's tie it all together in Part 5, delivering net positive value.
Now, the beauty of these net positive principles is that you don't have to throw out your existing playbooks to make them work. Circular solutions map seamlessly onto the global standards you're already using. Whether you're aiming for the UN Sustainable Development Goals, aligning with ISO environmental standards, boosting the E in your ESG reporting, or just running standard PMI, procurement, and resource management processes, you are basically just executing your normal routines, but through a much smarter, highly efficient lens.
So, what are our key takeaways here? First, resource scarcity is a dual-sided coin. Yes, it's a severe risk, but it's also a phenomenal opportunity for those who are willing to adapt. Second, efficiency, circularity, and innovation, they are absolutely no longer optional buzzwords. They are essential for survival. And finally, true resource stewardship creates sustainable long-term value. Organizations that act right now to measure every resource count, collaborate across their value chains, and reduce their dependency, they're the ones who will become highly competitive and truly future-ready.
There's a great quote from Dr. Ouache's framework that sums this up perfectly. The future will belong to those who use resources wisely today. It's a pretty stark reminder that the actions we take right now dictate our capabilities down the road.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really think about. Look at the initiatives currently sitting on your desk. How can your specific projects reduce resource dependency, extend the value of the resources you do use, and ultimately create a net positive impact, even when those resources are strictly limited? Take that question back to your teams this week and see what you come up with. Thank you so much for hanging out and learning with me today. Keep innovating, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.